I found out the children from our neighbor called my husband Dad one Tuesday. It was trash day. I was rolling our bins back up the driveway when I saw them. Lily and Noah, the 2 kids from the sleek gray house next door. They were playing in their sprinkler, shrieking with laughter. My husband Ben was on our porch, sipping his coffee. Lily, the 6-year-old, waved wildly. "Bye, Dad," she yelled. Ben froze, the coffee mug halfway to his lips. Then he gave a stiff, unnatural wave. My own blood turned to ice in my veins. Dad, before we go any further, you need to subscribe. This story will crawl under your skin. And stay there. The word hung in the humid morning air. Dad. I stood there, gripping the cold metal of the bin, the world tilting on its axis. Ben recovered quickly. He forced a laugh, a dry, brittle sound. Cute kids. They call everyone Dad, you know? Their own father's never around. He came down the steps, took the bin from my numb hands, and started wheeling it away, talking too fast. It's a thing now, a term of endearment for any friendly male figure. I said nothing. I just watched him. I remembered the late nights, the business calls he took in the garden. His voice a low murmur I could never quite make out. I remembered 6 months ago, coming down for water at 2 a.m. and seeing his side of the bed empty. I'd peered out the window and saw a shadow, his shadow, slipping through the gap in the fence that separated our property from the gray house. When I confronted him the next morning, he'd looked me right in the eye, his face a mask of innocent confusion. Babe, you were dreaming. I was right here. You must have had a night terror. He was so convincing, so calm, that I'd actually booked a doctor's appointment, worried about my own mental state. Now, standing in the bright, revealing sun of a Tuesday morning, I knew I hadn't been dreaming. The friendly neighbor, Sarah? The one who always brought over perfectly iced lemonade and smiled a little too brightly at Ben. She wasn't just a neighbor. The pieces, sharp and ugly, began to click into place. The business trips that always seemed to coincide with Sarah's visits to her sister. The way Ben had insisted we buy this specific house 2 years ago, even though it was over our budget. He hadn't just been buying a house. He'd been building a compound. I went inside, my body moving on autopilot. Ben was in the kitchen rattling on about his golf game. I wasn't listening. I was thinking about the DNA test. A stupid, trendy Christmas gift from my sister. For fun, the box had said. Discover your heritage. It had sat in my bedside drawer for months. Forgotten. Now, it felt like a loaded gun. That afternoon, while Ben was at work and the kids were at school, I did it. I didn't do it for my heritage. I did it because a cold, sick certainty was growing in my gut. I swabbed my cheek, sealed the kit, and drove it to a mailbox 10 miles away. I didn't tell a soul. The waiting was a special kind of torture. Ben was love-bombing me, bringing me flowers, planning a romantic weekend, his eyes full of a desperate, performative affection. Every time I saw Sarah in her yard, my heart would hammer against my ribs. She'd wave, that same plastic smile on her face. She was playing a part, and she was better at it than I was. 3 weeks later, the email arrived. Your ancestry DNA results are ready. My hands shook so badly I could barely type in my password. I clicked through the initial ethnicity estimates. A blur of European percentages I didn't care about. I went straight to the DNA relatives section. And there it was, the match I was both dreading and expecting. At the very top of the list, predicted relationship. Father. The name wasn't Ben. It was listed under a pseudonym, Silent Wolf 72. But right below it, with a 99.9% probability, was another match. A child, Lily Robertson. Our address, the gray house next door. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. My husband was Silent Wolf 72. My husband was the father of the little girl living next door. The man who slept in my bed, who ate my cooking, who held my hand during our son's piano recitals, had another wife, another family, literally 20 feet away. He had been living a double life in the most audacious, brazen way possible. He hadn't just cheated. He had built a mirror life, and I was the unwitting participant, the star of his sick, twisted show. My only mistake was taking a DNA test for fun. His was thinking he could hide his second family behind a neatly trimmed hedge. The truth was no longer next door. It was on my screen, in cold hard science, and it was about to burn his perfect little world to the ground. The DNA results glowed on my screen, A digital ghost that had just blown my life apart. Silent Wolf 72, Lily Robertson, father. The words were branding irons on my mind. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. A strange, cold calm descended over me. This wasn't a moment for emotion. This was a crime scene, and I had just found the murder weapon. Quick, conversational voiceover. The trap is set. What she does next is a masterclass in revenge. You need to see this. I took a screenshot. I saved it. I emailed it to a secret account I created. Then I cleared my browser history. I was a ghost in my own house, moving silently through the rooms Ben had paid for with his lies. I looked out the kitchen window. Sarah was in her garden picking tomatoes. She looked peaceful, happy. She had no idea the axe was about to fall. I needed more than a DNA test. I needed a confession. I needed to understand the depth of the betrayal. I went to Ben's home office. The door was never locked. He was arrogant. He thought I was oblivious. The trusting, simple wife. His computer password was our anniversary. The ultimate insult. I logged in. His digital life was a fortress of normalcy at first glance. My husband had a second family living next door. He tucked our children into bed, walked downstairs and went to tuck his other children into bed. He was living 2 complete lives, side by side, and I was the only one who didn't know. The cold calm inside me hardened into something else, something sharp and relentless. He thought he was a genius. He thought he had the perfect setup. But he had made one fatal mistake. He had underestimated the quiet wife, the one who paid the bills, who managed the household, who knew all his passwords. He thought I was part of the scenery. He was about to learn I was the architect, and I was ready to demolish everything he had built. I stood at the window until the light in their kitchen went out, then the light in what I assumed was Lily's room, and finally, the light in the master bedroom. A perfect silent tableau of a perfect silent family. My husband was in their bed. The normalcy of it was the most monstrous part. This wasn't a sordid affair in a motel. It was a second marriage, conducted 20 yards from his first. I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table in the dark, the stolen USB drive feeling like a live wire in my hand. I had the proof. The DNA, the photos, the bank records. I could go to a lawyer in the morning and take him for everything, but that felt too clean, too impersonal. He needed to feel the same tectonic shift, the same ground-breaking apart sensation I was feeling. He needed to be exposed, not just divorced. I needed a witness. The next morning, I acted perfectly normal. I made pancakes. I packed lunches. I kissed Ben goodbye as he left for work. His lie of a life packed neatly into his briefcase. The moment his car turned the corner, I got to work. I couldn't confide in a friend. This was too big, too bizarre. They'd look at me with pity, or worse, doubt. I needed someone impartial, someone who couldn't be swayed. I needed a private investigator, but not just any PI. I needed one who specialized in the kind of digital forensics that could trace the labyrinth Ben had built. I found him online. His name was Julian Moss. His website was sparse, professional, and promised absolute discretion. I called from a burner phone I bought at the mall. I need you to document a double life, I said, my voice eerily calm. My husband has a second family. He lives with them next door. There was a pause on the other end. Ma'am, could you repeat that? You heard me. The house to the left of 1842 Willow Lane. He's there most nights after 10 p.m. His name is on their mortgage. He's the biological father of both children. I have DNA proof. I need you to get me photographic and video evidence of his comings and goings, his integration into their household. I need a timeline that proves this is a sustained parallel life, not an affair. I laid out the facts like I was briefing a colleague. The bank records, the hidden cloud drive, the DNA match. Julian Moss listened without interruption. This is unusually comprehensive, he said finally. And you're sure about the address? I look at it from my kitchen window. I gave him Ben's work schedule, his car description, the make and model of Sarah's car. I was a fountain of damning information. I want to know everything. Does he take their garbage out? Does he go to their parent-teacher conferences? I want to know the depth of it. He took the job. He understood the assignment wasn't to catch a cheater, but to document a doppelganger. While Julian Moss began his surveillance, I began my own. I became a student of Ben's other life. I noted the times Sarah left for her yoga class. I learned the schedule of the mailman. I saw the way Ben would sometimes work from home. On days I knew Sarah's nanny had the day off, it was all there. A perfectly synchronized dance happening just out of sight. A week into the investigation, Julian sent the first batch of photos. They were taken with a long lens, crystal clear. Ben mowing their lawn on a Saturday afternoon. Ben carrying bags of groceries from their car. Ben sitting on their porch swing with Sarah, his arm around her, laughing at something on his phone. The most chilling one was a shot of Ben and Noah, the 4-year-old, sitting on the curb, looking under the hood of Sarah's car. Ben was pointing at the engine, explaining something. Noah was looking up at him with rapt, hero-worshipping attention, the same look our son gave him. Julian's report was a clinical dissection of my husband's betrayal. Subject spends an average of 4.2 nights per week at the secondary residence. Subject observed attending a soccer game for the minor child, Lily, on Tuesday evening. Subject observed purchasing a birthday cake for the secondary partner, Sarah, on Friday. He wasn't just visiting. He was a fixture, a pillar of their community. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when Julian managed to get a shot of their refrigerator. Tacked to the front, among child's drawings and grocery lists, was a family photo. Ben, Sarah, Lily, and Noah. They were all wearing matching Christmas sweaters. It was taken last Christmas Eve, the same Christmas Eve Ben had spent with us, arriving late and leaving early, claiming a work emergency. He had 2 families, 2 Christmas Eves, 2 sets of children to buy presents for, 2 women to lie to. I had everything I needed. The case was airtight. But I wasn't ready to go to a lawyer. A legal battle would happen in sterile courtrooms, with hushed voices and settled with checks. That wasn't justice. Justice was a spectacle. Justice was a bomb. And I was going to be the one to light the fuse. I planned it for a Sunday. Sunday was Ben's day. He always made a big show of it. Pancakes with the kids, a family walk, grilling in the backyard. The perfect American father. This Sunday, I told him I was taking the kids to my mother's for the day. A little day trip. He'd seemed relieved. It would give him more uninterrupted time next door. I didn't go to my mother's. I drove the kids to a movie an hour away, gave them money for popcorn and arcade games, and told them I had a migraine and would be waiting in the car. The moment they were inside, I drove home. I parked a block away and walked. My heart was a cold, hard stone in my chest. I carried a manila envelope. Inside was a curated selection. The DNA results, the Christmas photo, the bank statement showing the mortgage payment for the gray house, the photo of him under the hood of the car with Noah. I didn't go to my house. I walked right up to the front door of the gray house, the house my husband helped pay for, the house he lived in. I could hear laughter from the backyard, the sound of a sprinkler, the smell of charcoal from a grill. I didn't ring the bell. I opened the screen door and slid the envelope through the mail slot. It landed on their pristine hardwood floor with a soft thud. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't run. I walked calmly back to my car, my hands steady. I had just delivered the truth, like a poison pen letter, right into the heart of his other life. The bomb was now inside the house. It was only a matter of time before it detonated. My husband thought he could manage 2 families. He thought he was the master of 2 domains. But he was about to learn that when 2 worlds collide, there are no survivors. I had just started the collision. I drove back to the movie theater, my hands clenched on the steering wheel. The calm I had felt was gone, replaced by a wired electric anticipation. I had lit the fuse. Now I had to wait for the explosion. I picked up the kids, their faces sticky with candy, chattering about the film. Their normalcy was a shield, a bubble of innocence in the storm I had just unleashed. We got home just after 6 p.m. The house was silent, empty. Ben wasn't back from his day of errands. I put the kids in front of the TV and busied myself in the kitchen, my ears straining for any sound from next door. It was quiet, eerily quiet. No laughter, no sprinkler, no smell of grilling. The silence was more terrifying than any noise. At 7:15 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Ben running late. Client dinner came up. Don't wait up. The lie was so smooth, so practiced. But it was the last lie he would ever tell me. An hour later, the sound started. It wasn't a yell. It was a scream. A raw female scream of pure, unadulterated betrayal, slicing through the quiet suburban evening. It came from the gray house. Sarah. My body went rigid. The kids looked up from the TV. "What was that, Mom?" "Probably just a movie next door, honey," I said, my voice miraculously steady. "Turn it up a little." Then came the crashing sound. Something glass breaking. A man's voice raised in panic. Ben's voice. I walked to the front window and moved the curtain just enough to see. Their front door was flung open. Sarah stood on the porch, her face contorted, her body trembling. She was holding the manila envelope, the contents clutched in her other hand. "You bastard!" she shrieked into the house. "You lying, cheating bastard." "A wife? Next door? All this time?" Ben appeared in the doorway, his hands up, placating. "Sarah, please, let me explain inside." "Explain? Explain?" She hurled the DNA results at him. The papers fluttered in the air like confetti. "You have another son? Another daughter? You live there? You sleep in her bed and then you come here and sleep in mine? You're a monster!" Neighbors were coming out of their houses now, drawn by the commotion. The perfect, quiet street was getting a show. Ben tried to pull her inside, but she shoved him away with a strength born of fury. "I loved you," she screamed, her voice breaking. "I built a life with you. You told me she was your ex, that it was a messy divorce. You told me you barely saw her." My blood ran cold. He hadn't just hidden me from her. He had created a narrative. I was the bitter ex-wife. He had painted me as the villain in his story to her. "I gave you everything," Sarah sobbed, now collapsing onto the porch steps. "I believed you. The kids call you Dad." At that moment, little Lily came to the door, her face pale and frightened. "Mommy? Daddy? What's wrong?" The word Daddy hung in the air, a final devastating blow. Ben looked from Lily's terrified face to Sarah's broken one, to the gathering crowd of neighbors. I saw the exact moment his brain short-circuited, the sheer, overwhelming weight of his two lives collapsing onto him at once, in public. His face went slack with a kind of horrified paralysis. He had no script for this, no lie big enough to cover it. He didn't see me watching from my window. His entire world had narrowed to the porch of the gray house, the weeping woman, the confused child, and the judging eyes of the neighborhood. His perfect secret world was now a public spectacle. He finally managed to get Sarah and Lily inside, closing the door on the stunned faces of our neighbors. The show was over, but the damage was done. 20 minutes later, my front door slammed open. Ben stood there, his clothes disheveled, his eyes wild. He looked like a cornered animal. "You," he breathed, the word full of venom. "You did this." I was sitting on the sofa, a book in my lap. I looked up, feigning mild surprise. "Did what, Ben? Did you have a fight with the neighbor?" "We could hear it. Sounded awful." His composure shattered. "You know what you did. The envelope. The DNA test. You psychotic bitch. You ruined everything." He took a step toward me, and for a second I thought he might hit me. But I didn't flinch. I just looked at him. "I ruined it?" I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "I didn't sign a mortgage with her. I didn't father her children. I didn't spend my nights in her bed. You built this, Ben. You built 2 houses of cards, right next to each other. I just blew on them." The truth of it hit him like a physical force. He staggered back, collapsing into an armchair. He put his head in his hands. "My God, Sarah. The kids. My job." He was finally realizing the totality of the collapse. His reputation, his family, both of them, his career. It was all gone. "Get out," I said. He looked up, confused. "What?" "Get out of my house, now. Go to your other home. See if she'll take you in." He just stared at me, broken, He had nowhere to go. Sarah would never let him back in. And this house, my house, was no longer his. He eventually stumbled back out into the night. I didn't know where he went. I didn't care. I locked the door behind him. The silence in the house was absolute. It was over. My husband's second family was no longer a secret. It was neighborhood gossip. It was a screaming match on a front porch. It was a scar on our street. He was exposed, humiliated, destroyed. I had wanted him to feel the ground give way. And it had. I had wanted a spectacle. And I had gotten one. The bomb had detonated. His two worlds had collided. And he was the one lying in the wreckage. I was just the spectator, safe in my home, finally free of the lies. The war was over. I had won. But as I listened to the absolute silence, I realized the victory felt as hollow and empty as the house around me. The silence in the house the next morning was a physical presence. It was the silence of a battlefield after the guns had fallen still. Ben didn't come back. I didn't expect him to. The kids, confused but resilient, ate their cereal and asked where Daddy was. I told them he was on a long business trip. It was the gentlest lie I could manage. Quick conversational voiceover. This is the final chapter. The ending is not what you'd expect. The fallout was swift and merciless. By noon, my phone was blowing up. Friends, family, even local news outlets sniffing for a scandal. I didn't answer. I sent one mass text. Ben and I are separating. I ask for privacy during this difficult time. I blocked everyone else. I saw Sarah once. 2 days later, she was loading suitcases into her car, her movements sharp and angry. She saw me watching and stopped. For a long moment, we just looked at each other across the 2 lawns. 2 women connected by the same man's devastating lie. There was no hatred in her eyes, just a shared bottomless exhaustion. She gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod.